It's absolutely absurd, ludicrous, illiterate document written by ignorant people who don't understand. They don't know the basics of international law, of Ukraine constitution, or the world affairs. So it's a total shame, and I hope that no one was involved.
President Zelenskyy says he'll discuss the proposed peace plan for Ukraine with President Trump. It's a 28-point plan. It was drafted by Steve Witkoff, the US Special Envoy, and Kirill Dmitriev, a Kremlin negotiator, in Florida last month. The plan calls for Ukraine to surrender the entirety of its Donetsk and Luhansk regions, almost half the size of its armed forces, and recognise Russian as an official state language. So where does that leave the coalition of the willing and the fight for Ukraine's future? Well, joining us now is Oleksandr Merezhko, chair of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee in the Ukrainian Parliament, who has described Russia's demands as absurd and unacceptable. Oleksandr, thank you. Good morning.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Now, have any of your colleagues been involved in the drafting of this 28-point plan?
I do hope that no one was involved on the Ukrainian side, because it's absolutely absurd, ludicrous, illiterate document written by ignorant people who don't understand. They don't know the basics of international law, of Ukraine constitution, or the world affairs. So it's a total shame, and I hope that no one was involved.
And there you have a problem, because President Zelenskyy is going to speak to Trump about this plan. How much negotiating power do you think Zelenskyy actually has? Because we know when he hasn't had Donald Trump on side, things have gone spectacularly wrong.
Well, I think that our president just trying to be diplomatic with President Trump, but we haven't yet received very clear endorsement on the part of President Trump. He hasn't said yet that he wholeheartedly, officially supports this so-called peace plan. But at the same time, there is only one rational and constructive point in the whole peace plan, which I have read very attentively. And this is the first point about confirmation of Ukraine's sovereignty. What I would do, I would leave just only this point, and I would logically deduce from this principle the rest of the document in consistency with the principles of international law and the UN Charter.
Well, we've heard from the White House, this is from the White House press secretary, that the US president does support this plan. This involves clearly major concessions from Ukraine. If you had some red lines that you think are just immovable for you from Ukraine's perspective, what would those be?
The same rights under international law which belong to any country in the world. First of all, we're talking about not only about Ukraine as such, we're talking about the UN Charter and principles, basic principles like territorial integrity, respect for sovereignty, non-use of force, and so on. So these are the red lines. And I hope that the United States understand this. I hope that they wouldn't be imposed on themselves such a ludicrous plan which is nothing but an appeasement, classic case of the appeasement of the aggressor. It's totally unacceptable for any country on this planet.
I mean, in terms of giving up some territory, do you concede that that may have to happen in some eventual peace agreement?
It will never happen because, first of all, it's impossible from legal point of view, from the point of view of our constitution. It's impossible from international legal point of view. It's a violation of the sacrosanct principles of international law. And politically, it's impossible. If we create dangerous precedent, if we not punish but reward the aggressor with territorial concessions, we will undermine the whole global security. We will encourage other aggressors to do the same and to expect to be rewarded by territorial concessions. It's madness. It's total madness leading to the Third World War. That's why it should be stopped. And the aggressor should be punished. The victim of this crime of aggression should be supported. It's absolutely obvious for any unbiased person.
That is a concern that is absolutely shared by Ukraine's allies and many European countries, the coalition of the willing, countries that have been providing Ukraine with military support. There is this sort of idea, and I'm sorry to use this word because it sounds insensitive, but I think is the reality, that Ukraine is currently a bit of a buffer between the rest of Europe and Russia and Putin's motivations. if Ukraine did accept this type of deal, to what extent do you think the rest of Europe's security is at greater risk?
Of course, it will undermine not only our security and our survival as a nation, as a country, it will put at huge risk the security of all European countries, because Russia is waging right now hybrid war against Europe. It's trying to undermine stability. And if this plan is forcefully imposed on Ukraine, then direct conflict between NATO and Russia, between the European Union and Russia, is just inevitable. So it's in the best, we still have time to stop the aggressor and to prevent global war.
So given that, what do you think Zelenskyy will or should say to President Trump when they speak in the next few days?
I'm certain that right now he's doing, well, he's right, because he's trying to be polite. He takes into consideration some specific traits of character of President Trump. He's trying to be respectful, and he's trying to be diplomatic. Yeah, he says virtually one thing: okay, you have a plan, let's negotiate, but let's negotiate it in such a way which wouldn't undermine our survival, wouldn't erase us as a result of implementation of such a plan, and which would be in the best interest of global security, including the national interests of Europe and interests of the United States.
Oleksandr, thank you very much for explaining from your perspective the details of this plan that's been pulled together by Steve Witkoff and Kirill Dmitriev. Oleksandr Merezhko of the Foreign Affairs Select Committee in the Ukrainian Parliament. There is one part of this, Chloe, that we didn't get into there, which is that right now, Mr. Zelenskyy is partially weakened by the fact that there are allegations of corruption in some of his closest officials. And that might then have given Putin the opportunity to say, if I'm going to seize a deal, now might be an opportune moment to do that.
Yeah. I mean, it depends how much of a voice the Ukrainians are given ultimately, and indeed the Europeans at this level. There's a lot of backroom dealing at the moment, isn't there? And it's going to be interesting to see how much particularly the Ukrainians are allowed in on the negotiating. But it's something we'll keep right across here at Times Radio and